This conference will now be recorded.
Well, that quieted everything up.
Did so.
It's 9 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. Was there anybody for open forum, Lindsay?
No, Mayor Woodbury, I didn't have anyone sign up this
Okay,
meeting.
so that'll go by pretty quick. Confirmation of the agenda as amended, moved by Brian and seconded by Barbara. Any discussion? Okay, anyone opposed to that motion? And that is passed. And then I will hand the meeting over to, declarations of pecuniary interest. I have one with the public meeting. I'm on the board of directors for the Southeast Grey Community Health Center. So I'll turn that over to Brian and I'll get a coffee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So good morning all. Welcome to our brief public meeting here. So this is a public meeting concerning proposed zoning bylaw amendments pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act. The file is C16-21 and OPA 2-21, Township of Southgate. Any person or public body is entitled to attend the public meeting and make written or oral submissions in support of or in opposition to any of the proposed zoning bylaw amendments. Written comments should be submitted to the clerk, Lindsay Green. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Southgate before the zoning bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of Council of the Township of Southgate to the local planning appeals tribunal. And in addition, they may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the local planning appeals tribunal in the opinion of the board, unless in the opinion of the board there are reasonable grounds to do so. So the file number, as I indicated, is C16-21 and OPA 2-21 in the Township of Southgate. It is the Dundalk Medical Center, which is located, or the proposed Dundalk Medical Center proposed at the Concession 2, West Toronto Sydenham Road, part lots 229 and 230, and RP 6R9712, part 2, Concession 2, West Toronto Sydenham Road, part lots 229 and 230, plan 480. Proton Station Grounds, RP 16R9721, part 1, Geographic Township of Southgate. And I defy anybody to repeat that in the order that I just read it, or tell me what it all means. Anyway, that is great. So that's where we're at. The purpose and the effect of the bylaw amendment is to change the designation of the subject lands from industrial and open space to the downtown commercial designation, with an exception to allow for a medical clinic. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment application is to prescribe commercial uses appropriate to the site, and specifically a medical clinic and hospice. Adjustments to certain site-specific zone standards may be also required to accommodate setbacks and parking. The effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment would be to change the zone symbols on the subject property from public utility and open space to commercial exception, to provide specific commercial uses and site-specific provisions for certain zone standards. The effect of the site-specific official plan amendment is to redesignate the subject lands from neighborhood area and industrial to downtown commercial to facilitate the medical center use. So, may I please have confirmation from the clerk that proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Milne. Proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act.
Thank you so much for that. Now I will ask our planner, Clint Stredwick, to review correspondence received from commenting agencies. Mr. Stredwick, please.
Thank you, Chair Milne. I'll pull up those comments now. Just give me a second here. Comments, there we go. So the first comment we have is from Enbridge Gas. And they are indicating that they have lines running within the area, which may or may not be affected by the proposed site plan. And obviously, should it affect those services, it may be necessary to terminate the gas service and relocate it. And any service relocation required would be at the cost of the property owner. Okay, the next one is Public Works. Public Works indicate that a safe access can be provided. It's an urban asphalt road standard. A road widening is not necessary. An entrance permit applications are to be submitted, and it is a load restricted road. In the risk management office duties of the Public Works Manager, he indicates it's a wellhead protection area B, and with that, it's applicable to dense non-aqueous phase liquids products managed by education and outreach programs. The next one is the County of Grey. And the County of Grey indicate county transportation services have no concerns. At the time of writing this letter, comments have not yet been received from county paramedic services or housing departments. Should comments be received from these departments, county staff would forward them along to the township. The county requests notice of decision rendered with respect to the zoning amendment, and county staff look forward to receiving the official plan amendment for approval, should Township Council adopt the amendment. The next comments are from the Grand River Conservation Authority. The subject lands do not contain any features of interest to the Grand River Conservation Authority, and consequently, we have no objection to the zoning or official plan amendment applications. That's all I have for agency comments. I do have one comment from a member of the public.
Please.
We have a comment from April Ems, and she's wondering what the plan is with the rail line that runs through the open space where the new medical building is to be built. Their family, like many others in the town, have lived there for years and years and used the trail for walking, biking, snowmobiling, and ATVing, etc. Since the development in Dundalk, they're finding it harder and harder to do these things as the area is being completely built upon, with all these suburbs now being built, and now amenities are also being built to accommodate this growth. She says a number of families are wondering if there are plans to do anything with the rail line that runs right by the new 4-story seniors building, which is literally feet away from the building. We hope that our hobbies and way of life, that this one small town aren't going to be compromised for all this new infrastructure and all these new people coming in. I can't imagine seniors wanting to hear the sounds of snowmobiles or ATVs driving by constantly through the seasons. Anyways, a lot of us are just wondering. Some answers are wanting some answers to what the action for this is going to end up being, as we feel our little town and our little way of life is slowly diminishing with every new building going up. So, and that's all of the comments I have from public agencies and from the public.
And from the public. Thank you, Clint. Are there any questions or discussion from the council at this time? Not hearing any, I'll now ask the applicant, who is, of course, the Township of Southgate. I don't know who would ask those questions. If there are any, Clint, do you have any?
Well, I'd just like to expand upon a few things, and maybe it'll address
Certainly,
the
please.
comments from the public there. I wonder if Lindsay could share one of the attachments, or Alicia, the site plan specifically to my report.
Normally we'd have music to fill this
Yeah.
time in here, but maybe, oh, there we go. Oh, it was almost there. There we go.
There
Thank
we
you
go.
for that.
So,
Thank you for that musical interlude.
this is what's proposed for the site. I can say first off that the rail trail was a big part of the discussion for the development of this area. So the rail trail lands and the parking area that you see on that site plan along Proton Street North and Gray Street North are owned by the County of Gray. And so we've had months, I would say, of discussions with the county on the ownership and what that's going to look like, and how we're going to develop these lands to accommodate something like this project. As you can see, it's mostly parking, and that's done intentionally. First and foremost, the site that the township owns, which is the southern lot there, doesn't have enough space to accommodate all of the parking requirements for the medical clinic. So we required additional space. It was important to the county that the rail trail use be respected and maintained, and at the same time be safe for crossing by members of the public. And so that you can see that there's a bit of a curvy line to the trail now, as opposed to just straight on through. That's done intentionally to slow traffic down in that area. It's supposed to be slower in town anyways, but as you know, not everyone goes the speed limit, and such is the case with ATVs and snowmobiles. So this slows that traffic down a little bit to allow for a crossing to then be put across there to allow people parking on one side and then just across into the medical clinic. You'll notice that on the corner of Gray Street North and Proton Street, the parking area in that little area is a little bit different and sort of segregated from the rest of the parking. That's because that's more of a trailhead where people using the trail can actually park their vehicles and whatnot for short periods of time and actually use the trail and access it from that point without parking on the street, etc. So that's a bit of an enhancement to the trail, in my opinion. The other end of that block towards the east, I guess, or yeah, if north is Proton Street North, east would be the other end. There is a spot for horse and buggy parking for that segment of our population in the township. And then, of course, in the middle is the regular parking spaces for the driving public. Explaining to the south there, the medical facility, you can see we've tried to push it away from the actual rail trail and have it closer to the southern lot, so that it does maintain some distance away from that trail. It's not right on the property line by any means. There are a number of instances when we were doing this survey where actually there's been a number of buildings and whatnot that actually encroach upon the rail trail. So we're thankful that we did have the space to provide a setback for this. You can see we've accommodated a number of accessible parking spaces and employee parking, etc., and then access to the fire station lot as well on that. So it took a lot, 3 or 4 versions of this before we actually got it right, to where we were all happy with it between staff and the County of Grey. And this is our initial version of it. Certainly it's not a final version until after this process is done. We'll then bring this site plan back for an approval of its own. But this is just more of a concept that we're happy enough with to say that it's going to look somewhat like this as opposed to be completely different. And yeah, so that hopefully that answers Miss M's questions there about the rail trail. It is proposed to remain a recreational trail and still be used as everything from walking, biking, ATVing, and snowmobiles.
Thank you, Clint, for that description. Any questions or discussion from council? Okay, not seeing any. Is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in support of this application? Okay. Is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in opposition to this application? Okay, not hearing any. Last chance for questions or discussion from council. I guess I had one, a quick one. Clint, was there any discussion regarding the site plan or the proposed or draft site plan regarding what the compatibility may be or may not be when the rails get put back down? And I'm not suggesting that's going to be tomorrow or even this week, but maybe next week.
Yes, there was. In the initial stages, we were definitely talking about what happens if rail comes back.
When?
And that was one of the reasons why we wanted to try and push the building as far away from the property line between the rail trail and our lot there as much as possible, so that it would allow any sort of fencing that would need to be erected, because I imagine you would want, if a train is coming through, you're going to want something a little more robust in that area than open grassland. You're going to want some sort of fencing or whatnot for that area. So it would allow for that. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, that's good. As long as that is still part of the discussion, because I don't think we should rule that out. In any case, thank you very much. I guess that is all that we have for this morning's public meeting. So I'll adjourn the public meeting and hand the chair back to His Worship, Mr. Woodbury, Mayor Woodbury.
Mr. Mayor, what? All those things.
Yeah, that guy there
Yeah.
that's talking. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. Fine job, Brian. I should let you do that all the time.
Careful what you wish for.
Thanks, everybody. Stephanie, if you're there, Stephanie Stewart is here from the county to discuss the transit system. And to put it on the floor, we have the motion from Michael, seconded by Jim. So if you're there, Stephanie, and welcome, and thanks for all the work you're doing on this stuff.
Well, thank you. Just one moment. I gotta share the right screen here. It's always the fun part,
That one looked good.
right? Not quite the presentation that I wanted to share. There we go. Okay. All right. Everybody can see that okay?
Yep, that's great.
Great. So thank you guys for having me so much, Southgate Council. It's lovely to be here today. We thought here at Grey County that it would be a good idea to come back to you and let you know how the service has been going since we've almost been in operation for about a year. And I will be going off on mat leave in August, so I thought I would present to you prior to heading out. And then I do have the individual who will be covering for me is on the call here today. He wasn't able to be on Zoom or on video, sorry, but he has called in, so he is here to listen and take part in the meeting if you have any questions for him as well. His name is Charles Fitzsimmons. So I'm sure you will get to meet Charles at some point between now and the next year while I'm away. So if at any point you have any questions in regards to the presentation, just let me know and I'd be happy to answer. So today we are going to review how our ridership has been doing, what some of our successes have been, some of our challenges, what we plan on doing for marketing in the upcoming year or in the next few months, and our most recent survey. I should also start off with some great news that came out recently. The ministry has announced that they have extended our funding until 2025. So the municipality of Southgate was awarded an additional $307,000 and change to add to this project until 2025. So that's great news that we now have some secured funding and that will take us till 2025. Grey County also received additional funding in around $900,000 as well. So that's definitely great news for all of us that we know that we keep going for a little bit longer. So our total ridership to date for the GTR, I just got the numbers for June in, so this may look different, slightly different than the presentation that you have in front of you. So I just added the June information in just yesterday. So June now, as you can see, it's been our most successful month, and that's probably indicative of the fact that our regulations are starting to decline and we don't have such tight restrictions anymore, and we are able to a little bit more freely, and a lot of people have had their second or first dose. So I think the comfort level in traveling on public transportation and people wanting just to get out and about and enjoy the summer months has definitely resulted in an increase in our ridership. So as you can see here, in total for our entire service, 392 people used the service in June. So our best month yet. Specifically to the route that connects into your route, so Route 1, which is how most people get to Dundalk, we saw 94 people ride the service in June. Basically our second best month out of all of our months so far. As you can see, it's been a steady increase month over month. We definitely saw some drop-offs in December and January and February, and that was when the lockdown restrictions were, or stay-at-home order, sorry, was the strictest, I would say. So the route that is specific to you is Dundalk to Orangeville. It is our most successful route out of all of the routes that are operating on the GTR, and we have 6 of those in total. We had 147 people ride in the month of June. And again, that is our best month so far and our best route in ridership month-wise out of all of our services. So congratulations to you guys to have such great ridership and interest in using the service and definitely helping your residents move between Dundalk and Orangeville and beyond, really. So some of our successes, I would say, is the fact that we have been really reliable. We operated throughout the entire pandemic. We never stopped operating. We only stopped operating, I believe, twice throughout the entire winter, and that was because the roads closed. But what we did do was because we asked everyone to book in advance their seat, we were able to reach out to anyone and contact them and say, hey, just so you know, we have to shut down because of the roads being closed. When would you like to travel? How can we help you? Are you stranded? What's your situation? So we were able to call everybody and let them know what was happening and make sure that we didn't leave anyone stuck. No, not on your route specifically, but I do know that it did happen once between Hanover and Flesherton. There was an individual who needed to get home from Hanover back to Owen Sound, and we knew the roads were closing, and we were able to contact them, and they said, yeah, we will cancel our plans. We don't want to be stuck. We don't have anywhere to stay and spend the night. We'll gladly cancel our plans and come home early. So that has been really great and has created a reliable service for individuals. The fact that we have been able to contact them and speak one-on-one with anyone just to make sure that we're not leaving anyone stuck. Time and time again, we hear our price point, that it's just so great. So $5 to go all the way between Owen Sound and Orangeville has been something that people have really quite become fond of. It's definitely something that makes that trip affordable and makes employment possible for many individuals. We received a number of positive feedback. So we can obviously see it in our quantitative and qualitative. We have our ridership numbers, but we also have the feedback. And I have some of those comments in the next couple slides coming up. So that's been really great. And any time that someone gives us a call and lets us know that, you know, it could be better, or here are our suggestions, we make note of those suggestions and we let them know when we intend on looking at implementing the new suggestions in the future. So for community outreach, I have chatted with many groups. I've chatted with the Southeast Grey Health Services. I've chatted with Dufferin County Dufferin County Social Services, and I've just been talking to just different groups and food banks and things like that, just to let them know about our service. And they've also provided me with feedback on where new stops could be added to make life easier for residents in Southgate. Obviously, a great success is the fact that we are adding weekend service, and that's beginning in July, this coming weekend. So from July 10th till December the 12th, the town of Shelburne has paid for the additional weekend service that will be running between Dundalk and Orangeville. So your residents now will have access to transportation 7 days a week for the next 5 months. And then after that, it will be kind of a discussion with between Shelburne and Southgate, just the feasibility and what the interest is in running constantly 5 days or 7 days a week, sorry. But if it doesn't continue, the weekend service doesn't continue, then we will still be operating Monday to Friday. That's in our grant funding regardless. But I think it's really exciting. And we've been getting that feedback that weekend service would be very helpful. So we're excited to see what the numbers will look like and how people use it and what it can do for many residents. Also, we have added bike racks. So all of our buses are now equipped with bike racks. So that happened at the beginning of this week, July 3rd. They've all been installed, and now residents are able to use those. So the information is on our website in regards to the types of bikes that fit, and if you have like just the restrictions and the rules and guidelines around them, and then also information on what to do if you have a smaller bike. So all that is there. So those are our successes, I would say, for this year so far. So some good news. So just I'll read these off to you. So we had Rider 1, for example, says they do not have a car, a personal vehicle, and they ride from Shelburne to Orangeville for doctor's appointments. They say that this service is their primary mode of transportation. A Rider 2 is a university student and lives in Shelburne and travels to and from work at Chapman's and Markdale for the night shift. Rider 3 lives between Dundalk and Orangeville and rides to see family appointments and to find work. Rider 4 travels from their home in Shelburne to Dundalk for work. Rider 5, they haven't used the service quite yet, but they're very excited to start traveling between Shelburne and Markdale. And that's actually kind of a common thing that we do think will happen, is once the regulations and we start continuing to move into new phases, we'll see more people like Rider 5 possibly wanting to use the transit system and explore it. Rider 6, we have 2 of those actually, Rider 6 and Rider 8. They travel between the Skyview Motel and Dundalk. And that's actually a place that we intend on adding in a regular stop. We've been helping out individuals as needed, and we've made that arrangement with the Skyview Motel. So that's been really helpful for individuals that are using that as transitional housing or permanent housing. And they can now travel between Shelburne and Orangeville and Dundalk for appointments, which is great. Rider 7 lives in Eugenia and travels from Flesherton to Owen Sound or Flesherton to Orangeville for shopping and appointments. And they say that this service has definitely changed their life. So that's always great to hear when we have people that are able to say that this service has helped them out immensely. And Rider 9 and 10, they also live in Dundalk and work at Chapman's in Markdale, and they ride the GTR home every morning. So some of our challenges, of course, with everything, there are always challenges. And I'd say our 3 biggest challenges would have been the pandemic regulations, a decrease in transit demand, and marketing and promotions. So in regards to the pandemic regulations, obviously the stay-at-home order was a challenge for many. Being asked to stay at home means that people can't ride the bus. So that has been a direct result in our ridership, and the social distance requirements. So currently we have a limit of 5 people on the bus. So my intention to mitigate those challenges is I am working with our CAO, Kim Wingrove, and we will be speaking with public health and finding out when we can increase our capacities on the bus. So once we get that information, we will share it and we will make our seating capacity on the bus increased, which will be very helpful for many and be able to provide more options or seats and more rides for people. And obviously, now that we're moving into these new phases, I think that will just see an increase in ridership. The decrease in transit demand, more people were working from home, as we all are, right? So I think that's been huge. So again, once things start to go back to normal, we'll see an increase in our transit again, and many destinations were closed. So I think we will see more employment opportunities come back as more stores can open and restaurants are reopening, and jobs and things will be, employees will be looking for, employers, sorry, will be looking for employees. Marketing promotions, that's been a really challenging one. We've been asked to only promote that it's for essential travel only for transit right now. I believe that will be changing in the very near future, that we can start promoting it for fun and for other reasons. So we do have a marketing campaign planned in the very near future to roll out, and I think that will also help us increase our ridership and just get some awareness about the service going. It's just been really difficult. We haven't been able to say, take the bus to Dundalk and explore, or take the bus to, we have a new service that's operating to Sauble Beach, and I'm not able to say, take the bus to the beach and have a great day at the beach right now. So I'm looking forward to when I can promote the service for all of the great things that you can do with it. So it will be here soon enough, I'm sure. So what do we plan on doing for marketing? We have a social media campaign planned to launch between September and December, hitting all the target groups, so seniors, youth, and adults, and hitting kind of all the different reasons that someone might be wanting to take the bus. So for fun, for employment, for groceries, for medical appointments, highlighting all the ways and reasons that you can travel on our bus. So that will be rolling out in September of 2021. We have a radio campaign out right now, so you may start hearing the ads on the radio. It will be operating from July 3rd to October 9th periodically, and it's to promote the new weekend service between Dundalk and Orangeville. And we also have ads going out in the newspaper, in the Dundalk Herald and Flesherton Advance and the Shelburne Free Press. So keep an eye out for those, and hopefully you'll see them and it will draw some more attention to our service. This is just a sample of the ad that will be going out in the very near future. We're going to be doing a media release and also posting this on social media to let everybody know that we have bike racks. So this is just a sample. I think what we'll see too is that people will be able to ride their bike either to the stop or take their bike and now ride to work. So hopefully we'll open up some more opportunities for individuals. This is the ad that you will see in the newspapers, and it went out on social media last week and should be out again today, letting everybody know that the service is operating on weekends. So that's very exciting. In June, we offered a survey called the GTR Service Improvement Survey, and it ran between May 20th and June 18th. And we did this so that way we could get some feedback as to how we can make the service better. And we intend on making these changes in the fall of 2021 to our schedule. The province has been great and has allowed us to have some flexibility. So we are going to be adding and changing up some of our stops to be more on demand. So we don't necessarily stop there every time, but we'll stop there if someone requests it. So that's really exciting, and we'll add an option for some people to have some more flexibility in our schedule. So we had the survey online for almost a month, and we had about 149 responses in total. 23 of them came from Route 1 and Route 2, so the route between Owen Sound and Orangeville. What days of the week would you like to travel? Of course, the most common response was every day of the week. Where would you like to travel? So we heard we have it pretty bang on with where people want to travel. There's just a few other places. People wanted us to stop at the Skyview Motel, as I said. People asked if we could stop at the Champs or Super Burger in Mono, and then a number of other locations in Orangeville. So that feedback, I'm going to be working with our contractor, our bus operator, and just looking at how we can enhance our services and add these stops in and what looks reasonable. What time of the day would you like to travel? So the most common response was 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. So that's obviously a result of employment. People want to use the service for employment. So that's great that we hear that. And then again, it followed up with what is your primary purpose of travel? So shopping and employment. So the results are pretty consistent with the feedback that we've been getting. So we feel like we're in good shape, and we are confident with the changes that we want to make for the fall of 2021. Something to add to this as well, as I've been working closely with Go Transit to make sure that once we make our changes in the fall, that they align closely with the Go service. We do connect right now, but we can make those connections better and more seamless. So we will be working with them. We're just waiting for their schedule to be confirmed for what it will look like in September, and that should be done mid-July. And then we will make our changes appropriately, so that way we can help more individuals connect and be able to connect to the Brampton GO train and get downtown Toronto or wherever they'd like to go. So the next few slides are just the results of the survey, but I won't read those out to you. And I will stop sharing my screen. And that was my presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Great, Stephanie, thank you. Lots of good information there. Barbara.
Hi, good morning, Mayor Woodbury, and good morning to Stephanie, and welcome, Charles. Look forward to meeting you, and all the best to you, Stephanie. Congratulations.
Thank you.
This is a really great presentation. Really excited about, you know, expanding and it continuing. Just had a couple of questions, Stephanie. The price point of $5 is fantastic. Was there any, I didn't quite see if there was a question in the survey, how much would people be willing to pay? Because I'm not sure how that $5 can be sustained long-term, but if that's the plan, that's really great. And when you talk about essential service, you know, essential travel, do you actually ask people what purpose they are traveling to, okay, Sabo Beach? Or is that, you know, you're kind of on your honor system?
So to answer your first question in regards to price, the price point was set as a result of kind of what we put in our grant application. So that's how that $5 came about. Before we even started the service, we did ask people, first survey, what would they be willing to pay? And it was quite interesting because we got a variety of responses. We got some people were willing to pay $15. Some people were willing to pay kind of on a sliding scale, depending on how far they traveled and all of those types of things. What I learned from that was if you were using it for regular constant employment and you were wanting to ride it every day, the price point needed to be lower. The people who were willing to pay $15, it was because they wanted to go down to Toronto for the day. So I think we need to keep the price point low in order to keep it affordable for residents. What that buffer is, we definitely have some time before our grant funding runs out that we can look into it and ask people kind of what that scale is. To be honest, I do know other transit agencies. So for example, a lot of transit agencies in the GTA use Presto. Simcoe County has a similar system to Presto where the fare changes as they travel, depending on how far you travel. That's a lot more complicated for people to navigate and to figure out. So for a lot of people, and even for our residents, we found that at the beginning when we started, we didn't offer the ability to pay by cash. And now we added that in March, we added that in, and you can see that people wanted to pay by cash. So I think keeping it simple and keeping it affordable for people will be really, really key until we get really established, like down the road. Maybe we could adjust to a system that it changes depending on how far you travel. And that could be really helpful for some people. If you wanted to go all the way from Southgate, all the way up to Wyerton, to just have to pay, kind of tap a card on and not have to think about it and then tap when you get off, that could be really helpful for some people. So it's definitely on our radar and something we will continue to explore. And in regards to your second question about essential travel, we put it on the website and we have been using it kind of as an honor system. We feel when we looked at our stops until recently, so we only started going to Sauble Beach at the end of May. So May 2-4 weekend is when we started going there. So besides the beach being a fun destination, the majority of our stops are at places where you would really only be going for essential reasons. And we had that discussion at a larger capacity from a transit overview with a number of transit agencies. And they did say you should just use the honor system because it's a very challenging line to walk when asking someone who rides a public transit bus where they're going and why they're going. Whereas if you had the autonomy to use your car, no one would be questioning you. So we just definitely use it as an honor system. And even when we do say that we have a service that goes to Sauble Beach, right now we've been definitely using it to say, would you like to work at the beach? Are you looking for a summer job? And that's the real reason that we added the service to Sauble Beach, was to help out those employers and individuals who were looking for employment opportunities at Sauble Beach.
Just one follow-up, and thank you so much. You make some really great points, and while I support the $5, maybe in the future as we expand or as we make it a more permanent service, perhaps we can have a monthly pass for those regular travelers who want to take advantage of going to work 5 days a week or whatever their shift is. And I agree. It's like asking people where they're going and why they're going would be, a breach of privacy. So thank you so much for the presentation. Really excited about this.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thanks. Michael.
Good morning, Stephanie. I'm just kind of wondering if how much parcels, have you put any packages on the road? Are we any freight or anything moving on the transit system right now?
I don't recall specifically, like it hasn't been brought to my attention. I do know that there have been people who are traveling to Toronto and they'll bring like a suitcase with their luggage. So we do have like a bit of a trunk in the back of our vehicle, so we're able to do that. But we do ask that people typically travel with just a backpack and that like oversized items aren't really meant to be used on the bus because that would definitely take up quite some space in our cabin or inner area of our vehicle.
Just to follow up, no, I mean more of a courier service. Like if people are wanting to ship something, say to Owen Sound, but don't want to travel themselves. Are you guys looking at anything like that too?
So first part, no, we haven't had that happen yet. And I don't know that we really want to be responsible for people's freight necessarily, because there is some risk and liability to putting that on. What we have the conversation in talking with Southeast Grey Health Services, I have opened up the dialogue and saying if they are working with the food banks, and they would like some assistance working with community partners like the food bank to help bring food to the Dundalk Arena, and then say a Southeast Grey Health employee picks up the food and then carries it on. We're open to those kinds of partnerships, but from a courier standpoint, I would feel like I'm inclined to say that we may want to stay away from that just for the risk perspective of transporting people's goods.
Okay, thank you. Brian, then Martin.
Thank you, John, and good morning, Stephanie. My question is somewhat related to the question that Councillor DeBreen posed. The $5 a ride. What would that ride cost from Owen Sound to Dundalk if we had to cover all our costs? And I know there's a lot of variability there depending on distance, number of passengers, and all the rest of it. But you know, what would that price point look like if we had to cover that cost, or if the passenger had to cover that cost? Sorry.
So I don't have, to be honest, I don't have that number prepared for you today, but I will get it for you and get back to you with what that number could be. I will be presenting to Grey County Council in August, so I'll make sure that I have that information ready for you then. But I do know it would be very expensive, really, if you think about just the capital costs of the assets and then the cost of all the drivers. It would likely be unaffordable for many people to use. It would probably be similar to the rate of a cab. I'm just speculating to have that answer for sure, but I know that it wouldn't be something that you could really market as public transportation anymore because it would be pretty expensive.
Right, and I expect that's a big reason why Greyhound, Grey Coach, all of those public carriers have abandoned those routes, and you know, there's no free ride, so to speak.
Yes,
Maybe now
and you
or
are
maybe
right.
later.
Yeah, Greyhound has stopped operating, and we've definitely seen an uptick in people wanting to take our service because now there really are no other options to get from Owen Sound all the way down. So it has affected many people that Greyhound doesn't operate, but I guess one of the things that is in our benefit is that we're in between, like we're half kind of micro transit / operating full transit. Because of the size of our vehicles, we're still able to keep the cost relatively affordable, and we're not running with large buses that are empty. And whereas it has a really big bus, so your expenses are quite higher, and you need a lot more people on that bus to fill it, right? So
Yep.
That's definitely something that works to our advantage.
Yeah, well, it's a great service, and we'll see where it goes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Martin.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Woodbury. Good morning, Stephanie. I was looking at the Route 1 and Route 2 ridership. It says Owen Sound to Dundalk, then Dundalk to Orangeville. I'm assuming the ridership numbers reflect the people coming back from Orangeville to Dundalk and Dundalk to Owen Sound. So all the numbers on the graph are individual fares. There's no repeats, or you know what I mean? Like they're all individual fares, no doubling up.
Correct. That's them getting on and getting off.
The route.
Yeah.
Okay. It's good to see the numbers up. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Barb, you have a follow-up?
Thank you. I was trying to Google the latest numbers, but this feeds off of Deputy Mayor Milne's question, and the expense or the full cost associated with going that distance. If we were to compare Dundalk, the shuttle that goes to the Toronto airport, for example, which is, you know, significant distance, but maybe Owen Sound to Orangeville is equivalent. It's like $75 or more one way.
And I guess to add to that too is sometimes those shuttles pick you up from your front door. So that's also one of the differences between our service and those other kinds of services is we ask people to congregate at a common location as opposed to picking them up from their house, which is obviously more convenient.
Okay. Thank you. The orange buses, they really stand out. They have people asking and what they are and about them and things like that. Dave, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, just thanks, Stephanie. Great report, as usual. Just wanted to talk about the Dundalk numbers or that route numbers. Is there a breakdown for Dundalk Shelburne pickups as opposed to one total number?
Yes, I can get that for you to let you know how many people are. Yes, if you.
Don't worry about it right now. It's just, I guess my point is if the day of reckoning comes that we have to put this in our budgets, you know, there's going to have to be some allocations to other municipalities to make this happen. Because I mean, we were the ones that started it with Grey County and got the government funding, which is being shared and partnered with. But you know, when we have to actually write the check, we'll need to have that kind of breakdown. But great report, yeah. Great numbers.
I have it on another screen here. So I can give you just, for example, for June. So for the month of June, the total ridership was 147 people. We picked up 39 people in Dundalk, and that's like the most amount of people that we are picking up. So Dundalk is where we're picking up the most amount of people, and then we pick up about 38 people in Shelburne, and then the numbers are lower at all of the other stops. So we're seeing less people getting picked up in Orangeville, and then the amount of people that are coming back to Dundalk or being dropped off at the Dundalk Arena was 28. So the most common location, so for example, 39 people get on in Dundalk and 39 people are getting off at the Orangeville Mall. So the most common location for people to get on is the Dundalk Arena, followed by downtown Shelburne. And then the most common place where people like to get off is the Orangeville Mall or Shelburne, downtown Shelburne, and then coming back to Dundalk.
Okay.
So it's pretty even, but I definitely have those numbers for you, and I can send that over to you after today if you'd like.
It's kind of interesting that where did those 11 people go that left Dundalk? But I'm not going to go there.
There's a few other stops that people can go to. So they're probably getting off at those locations.
Usually if you get picked up at one location, you eventually come back to the same place. But anyway, we'll leave it there.
Perhaps another day. Maybe they're coming home, spending the night, or going to catching the GO bus and then coming home on another day. But yes, I do agree with you. It's quite interesting. So when I look at Route 2, the popularity of the stops, so of all the stops, again, Dundalk Arena has had 442 people in total, which that's comings and goings, and that's duplicating the number. So that number's about 27% of people get on and off at the Dundalk Arena, 24% at the Orangeville Mall, 20% at the downtown Shelburne, 16% at the transfer station, so where Orangeville Transit connects, and 14% at Fiddle Park Lane by the arena in Shelburne. So definitely the Dundalk Arena is our most popular by a few percentage.
Good, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's great. Any more comment? Not seeing any. So thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate all the work you've put into this. So we'll look forward to seeing your report in August at the county. And then I guess you're done almost right after that for a while. So yes. Congratulations, and enjoy your time. And we will hopefully see you when you come back. You've been gone for a while, so let's looking forward to seeing what happens. So
me too.
It was posted. So we have the motion. Yep, we have a motion before you. Is anyone any further discussion on this? Anybody opposed to receiving this for information? And that is carried. Thank you. Next, we have adoption of the minutes, moved by Martin, seconded by Jason, and that's from June 16th and June 23rd. Any discussion on those? Okay, seeing none, anyone opposed? And that is carried. Next, 9.1.1, moved by Michael, seconded by Barbara, and that's a soils permit from Bev. Bev, or let's see. Oh, yeah, there you are. Did you want to add anything to this report?
Through the mayor, no, I don't believe so. I'll answer any questions there are, but report pretty well speaks for itself.
Okay, lots of report there. Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I'm just a little puzzled as to why this is in front of us. Council doesn't approve a fire permit, for example, or a building permit. Why are we being asked to approve a soils permit? I would think you either meet the conditions or you don't. Can you help me a little bit with that, Bev, please?
Yes, I can, Mr. Milne. To be honest with you, before this, I was granting permits as long as you met the conditions and moving on. But when I dug further into the bylaw and the way I read it, council must approve these permits, not me. So that's why I'm not sure exactly what section of the bylaw it is. I don't know if I can put my hands on it quickly or not.
That's fine. I guess if it says it in the bylaw, then that's fine. But yeah, that's just kind of odd in my mind. Maybe the CAO could fix that.
I think maybe it should be, maybe we should review that section of the bylaw.
I would suggest so. Thank you.
If council's interested in that, yes.
I saw both the clerk and the CAO look like they were jotting something down there, so I think, yeah, that's a good thing to look into. Was there anything else? Okay. Is anyone opposed to this motion? And that is carried. So yeah, we'll see what we can do about easing that one out a bit better. 9.2, Liam's report, moved by Jim, seconded by Martin, and that's the tax rates. Liam, do you want to add anything to that?
I'll just summarize that council passed the 2021 budget in February, requiring $7.9 million, and this is the tax rate bylaw to collect that amount.
Okay. Barbara?
Through you, Mayor Woodbury, and to council, I further to Liam's comments in the report. He is indicating that the cost associated with processing the collection processing has increased significantly, and he'd like to see us increase the fee charged to those properties that are, I guess, delinquent, a bill charge for processing them to be increased to $40. And I would like to propose an amendment to the resolution. I think Lindsay has the wording.
Mm-hmm.
If council would so entertain in support of Liam's request.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that motion?
I just need to read it for a second here first.
Yeah.
And if I may seek clarification myself, Mayor Woodbury, this is to set the minimum amount payable as to $40 and is not actually a penalty the way it's written here. Liam, perhaps you could clarify Because I initially understood that it was the cost associated with processing those taxes in arrears. But this wording is a little different.
So the $40 is not a penalty or for delinquent bills. It's a minimum tax amount. So there are some properties within the township that might be have different assessment levels or be a different tax class where their tax amount would be really low. So we're just setting a floor to the minimum tax amount because it does cost us to issue bills and you collect the money. So it's been $20 since, I believe, since day one. It's never been increased. So I thought this would be the time to increase it. So at $40, it's really somebody paying $10 every installment. And as for clarification for the penalty, I'm not sure I'm seeing that. So we're approving the tax ratios. We're setting the minimum tax bill amount at $40, and we're providing penalties and interest. That's the 1.25% that we've always had. And there's the way we're going to collect the taxes. So the $40 and the penalty are two separate issues.
Thank you. So it's more like a credit card where you have to make a minimum payment each month. We're just asking that if the taxes are so low, the minimum tax bill would be $40.
It's not a minimum payment. It's a minimum charge, a minimum tax.
Got it. Thank you. I think that helps explain it better.
Okay. So do we have a seconder for that now?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
But I also
Any
have a question. I have a question, if I might.
Okay, well, you should ask your question.
Thank you. So, Liam, is the $40 minimum, is that an annual tax bill or is that a quarterly tax bill minimum of $40?
Annual, $40 annually.
So we'll still be sending a tax bill out quarterly for $10. Is that correct?
We'll be sending out, we always send out two bills, the interim bill and the final bill. So the interim bill will go out, and so essentially someone will have to pay $10 in March, $10 in June, and then $10 in August and $10 in October.
Okay, that's good. That clarifies it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Dave?
Liam, is it against the law to just bill them the $40 in one shot rather than all those transactions and staff time? Or is that against the law? Are we breaking some law? Because the processing costs on $40 4 times negates any useful profits or useful revenues.
So the answer is yes, we are prevented from doing that. The interim bill must be 50% of the prior year taxes, and it must be, and then we split it over 2 interim installments. So it would be very difficult to separate treat certain property owners differently than others.
Okay, I get that. Could we bill them the $40 in one payment being the last payment of the year? But I leave that for something to look into.
Okay. Yep. Any other questions or comments? Martin?
Just a comment, Liam, it was a good point that Dave brought up. Is it possible with the first bill to go out, just who has the minimum property for that amount of money? Is it possible just to send a friendly reminder saying it's possible to pay this in one go? Like just do it that way? Or do you have to send out 2 mailings?
Right now, the way the bylaw is worded, I don't have that flexibility, but I think I will look into the matter and perhaps we can do something different for 2022.
Yeah, because if I had a tax bill for $40, I'd pay the whole thing when it came in. That doesn't negate the fact that you'd send me another one saying I had a 0 balance. It's still paperwork and time. I can realize that. But anyway, nope, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, Barb?
So just to follow up to Liam, I can understand how we have to treat everyone the same. to require someone to pay their tax bill regardless of the amount in full when others get to pay it quarterly could be deemed discriminatory, perhaps. So I'm just curious, do you know how many properties in Southgate actually have taxes so low that they would only be paying $40 a year? Just curious.
I don't have the exact number, but off the top of my head, I believe it's roughly about $240 extra that we get by using this minimum tax amount. I'd have to look into it if you want to know the exact number of properties or the exact amount.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Michael?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think we should be putting a minimum on taxes when it comes to, if a person's property is deemed that low in tax dollars, he should get the benefit of paying what is due. To gain $240, that means there's not a lot extra out there that we're, for $240, that's what we're going to gain off these few people. I don't know if it's really worth putting someone in a different area than everybody else. I think we should all be the same within Southgate. Every taxpayer the same.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so this is on the amendment, and the amendment is sitting before you on the screen. Anyone opposed to the amendment? Michael is one. Okay, so one opposed and the rest is not opposed, so that is carried. So then we can go to the motion as amended. Any further discussion on that? Okay, seeing none. Anyone? Oh, Barbara?
Point of procedure, because there was a member opposed, do we need to take a vote?
These were some of the rules we put in place for the for during the emergency and doing it this way. So I'm not sure that we have to. We've chosen to for bylaws and that. Lindsay, I'll defer to you on that.
I would do a recorded on the main motion as amended, just as the final.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, seeing none. So then we have the motion as amended. And then Lindsay, I'll get you to do that vote.
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. Recorded vote called for the main motion as amended for staff report FIN 2021-022, the 2021 tax rates. Councillor Dobreen?
Yes.
Councillor Shearson?
No.
Councillor Frew?
Yes. Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne?
Yay.
Mayor Woodbury?
Yes.
Councillor Rice?
Yes.
Councillor Shipson?
Yes.
By a vote of 6-1, that's carried.
Okay, thank you. And next we have the bylaw to go with that, moved by Brian, seconded by Barbara. Any discussion on that? Barbara?
Through you to the clerk, does the bylaw wording have to be changed to reflect the previous resolution? Or does it not affect the bylaw?
Liam is the wording. I just have to pull it up here. If it says the $20 in the...
Yeah, to be consistent, we probably should.
So I would just do the wording, be it resolved that bylaw 2021-093 as amended, and then carry on, just a friendly amendment.
Okay. And that's okay with Brian and Barbara? Okay, good. All right, any other discussion on this, on the bylaw? Seeing none, I'll turn it over to you, Lindsay.
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. So recorded vote called for bylaw 2021-093 to adopt the 2020 tax rates as amended. Councillor Rice,
Yes.
Councillor Shipston,
Yes.
Mayor Woodbury,
Yes?
Councillor Shearson,
No.
Deputy Mayor Mill,
Yay.
Councillor Dobreen,
In favor?
Councillor Frew,
Yes.
by a vote of 6 to 1, that's carried.
Okay, thank you. And next we have 9.3.1, moved by Jim, seconded by Michael. And that's the Maple Grove Cemetery bylaw draft amendments. Lindsay, did you want to add anything to that?
Sure. Just this was basically a pretty big cleanup, actually. Ever since we don't have the cemetery board anymore, I think that was 2017. I believe we haven't had that since then, and the bylaw didn't really have an update, so quite a bit of updating just generally. And then we added a couple sections. There wasn't a section for the scattering gardens at all, and just some cleanup. We made it so that it's clear that we don't do winter burials unless obviously there was extenuating circumstances. And just what else? We just basically a lot of just general updates. I included the bylaw there for review with the track changes. Obviously the formatting's a little off, so once this is considered by council, it'll get sent to the bereavement authority for their approval. Then I'll bring it back to council for a final approval with fixed formatting and everything like that.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Martin and Brian.
Hey, good morning, Lindsay. On
Morning.
page 124 of the agenda, we're looking at 1.5 care and maintenance fund. It just says a prescribed amount or percentage of purchase price. Do we have an amount set now, or is that in the fees and schedules?
Yeah, it is in the fees and charges schedule, and it's
Okay.
40%, I believe. It's
Okay.
in fees and charges. Yep.
Okay, so the amount really didn't need to be in there because that could change.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah,
40.
that's right.
Yeah.
If I might clarify,
Sure.
right now, like the percentage of contribution to care and maintenance depends on what we are selling, if it's a plot or if it's scattering gardens or if it's a columbarium niche. So it's a little bit variable. And right now the BAO has not changed those prescribed rates for several years. However, once they do, then that would just automatically be applied if we leave it in the bylaw saying use the prescribed amount or percentage.
Okay, that's all I wondered. That's good to know. That's great. Thank you.
Okay, great. Brian.
Thank you, John. I was going to ask about the no winter interments. It's good to make it clear. I thought that we were allowing winter interments, but nonetheless, that's fine. Two things I noted when I went through it was on some 7.1 monuments and markers, there is a charge, a dollar amount in there. Should those amounts be in the fees and charges bylaw, so that if you want to change those for putting, excuse me, corner markers or whatever down, then the schedule can be changed.
So we can't change those. Those are also prescribed by the ministry.
But should they not still be in the fees and charges bylaw as opposed to here?
It is listed in the bylaw, but it doesn't
Oh, okay.
say the fee in the fees and charges. It just, I forget, Liam, what the wording says. It says set by the ministry, I believe, but it is in the listing.
Right. Okay. And the other thing I noticed was in 9.9. 9.9. I don't know who Paul Bears is, but it should be P-A-L-L, not P-A-U-L.
Yeah. Yeah, Jim, our public works manager wanted that in there as we were getting quite a few requests, I believe, to actually assist with the burials rather than just take out.
And I get that. I'm not arguing the point. I'm just the spelling of Paul.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll fix it.
I don't know who Paul Bearer is, but
I think that was a wrestler at one point, but
okay, fair enough. Thank you. That's all I had.
okay. Martin?
That was a good catch, Brian. I didn't even see that. That's funny. Anyway, part 3, Lindsay. It shall be the duty of the secretary. Will that be you or some other administrative assistant? Like, is it specific, a new position, or does it all come on your shoulders?
No, it was me for quite a few years, but Holly Malnick's doing it now, but
Okay.
it's just kind of a wording in the bylaw. We're not obviously hiring anyone specific to do that. It is in the clerk's department that we cover that. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, Barbara?
Through you and further to Deputy Mayor Milne's comment about winter internments, is that just burials, like in-ground burials, where you have to actually open the grave site? Because we do have a columbarium that could be used for cremations, or is it no winter interments at all?
No, it would just be for the full casket burials and I guess cremation burials in ground. We haven't been doing them really much for the last couple of years. The guys have had a lot of trouble with getting the equipment into some of the rows and stuff, so we really don't do it anymore. So we just want to make that clear. But I mean, if there was extenuating circumstances or like the pandemic, originally the BAO said to bury right away. So in that, like because of the pandemic, so that sort of thing, we would obviously make arrangements, but we just don't want to take it on when then there could be a problem with the equipment and sinking graves and that sort of thing.
Right, thanks. I figured it was just for in-ground burials. I appreciate the clarification.
Okay. Well, seeing no more, I'll call the question on this. Anyone opposed to this motion? Okay, seeing none, that is passed. And next is moved by Jason, seconded by Barbara, 9.3.2, and that's the Committee of Adjustment date change. Anything to add to that, Lindsay?
Nothing really here. This was just because we're having another special council meeting on the 21st of July. So like we did in June, we thought we would move Committee of Adjustment and Public Planning to all the same days. So it just is better for everyone's schedules that they're not in meetings again the following Wednesday.
Great. Any questions or comments? Martin, and then Brian.
Just a comment, when I saw that come in over the phone, I'm always very appreciative of the way you guys do your schedules, and for me, I appreciate that. At least I can get to the 2 meetings that I should go to, and if not 3, I can usually book my time accordingly and still go to work. So just thank you guys very much. That's all I wanted to say.
Thanks.
Brian?
Thank you, John. Lindsay, has the meeting request for the special meeting gone out? Or no?
I would have to look, to be honest.
Just check that. I don't see it on my calendar here, but anyway.
Yeah, it went out. Do you want me to, I can forward it to you again.
If you wouldn't mind, please. Thank
Yep.
you.
Yep.
Not to say I didn't get it, but or no, you didn't send it, but I may have not got it. That's all. Thank you.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions or comments on this? Seeing none. Anyone opposed? And that is carried. Thanks, Lindsay. Next up, 9.4.1, moved by Michael, seconded by Martin, and that's the rainbow crosswalk color options. Jim, if you wanted to add anything to this, good morning.
Good morning, good people. I'd just like to, in discussions with Councillor DeBreen, clarify that what we heard at the last meeting was the Pride flag colors. And just to elaborate on that, the Pride flag 2021 colors include colors of people and transgender. So if council wishes to go that route in design with the chevron as opposed to the blocks included with those different colors as well, just wanted to clarify that of that misunderstanding that maybe took place.
Okay. Well, I've got to tell you, Jim, I was a little bit disappointed that there was just a picture and not drawings this time. But I'll get over that. So that's okay. Thanks for your work on this. Are there any questions from anybody? Barbara?
So through you, I don't see that the rainbow crosswalk has to be anything fancy, although Jim's drawing was really an original piece of art and really worked well. Owen Sound has the simple blocks or rectangles, which incorporated all of those colors. I did share with Jim my thoughts, and I kind of like short of trying to figure out how we're going to get the proper paint and who's going to install it, I like the idea of the rainbow crosswalk being along Artemisia, right at the Canada Post office, between the post office and the variety store. It would see a lot of Main Street traffic. It would be visible from Main Street. It would see certainly a lot of foot traffic because of the number of people who go to pick up their mail at the post office. It's across from the old town hall. I think it's a really good suggestion, and I would support that as opposed to putting it out by a future medical center that isn't even built yet. Just my thoughts. Whatever is council's wish. And then Jim, can you expand on how we would, if we all agree on a location and cost doesn't seem prohibitive due to the paint, acquiring the paint, and then who's going to do it? I'd like to see this go forward. It would be nice for this summer, especially given one of the big supporters and allies of Pride just passed away this week.
Okay. Any other questions or comments, or Dave?
So just to update council, we've done a bit of a pivot, and we'll update you on at the July 21st special meeting. But the pool application for creativity of inclusiveness and so on, we've incorporated in the proposal a Pride markings on pavement in the park near the pool. And but anyway, we'll update you on that. So there is some strategy in that application to make the park welcoming to all, and as part of that pool application.
Okay, thank you. Brian?
Thank you, John. I would concur with Councillor DeBreen. I like the Artemisia location, just at the corner there at the post office, between the post office and the former library.
Okay, thank you. Martin?
Yeah, I think we're on the same wavelength here, because I was looking at the locations, and since Dave's already mentioned something maybe with the pool area, I was definitely looking at Croton Street North between the municipal parking lot and number 5, Artemisia Street. So I think there'll probably be a consensus there. When it comes to options for painting, through you, John, to Jim, it says township staff, or you can contract it out, township staff that are interested in doing this work, and community volunteers. Do you have a number, since it's in the report, do you have a number of staff that are willing to be interested in doing this? And if so, will we send out a letter to the community? Because I think to get the community going on it as well, especially if there's some township staff to oversee what's going on, that would be a good thing for the community to get into. It's not just us doing all the work and what have you. So any thoughts about that?
Go ahead, Jim.
No, I haven't reached out to staff yet. I would look for some volunteers for some of our staffing if that's the route we're going to go. Like myself, I'm not a painter. I don't like painting, so I don't say to somebody, you know, you're going to be the painter kind of thing, but I'm sure we could get enough people. It being, like I've discussed in the report, that it is one of our streets, we can close it and deal with how we have to get it installed at what opportune time or whatever. So all that's within our jurisdiction, and we can work out those details. Yeah, if community involvement, if that's the way we'd like to have this participated with, that'd be great. And Councillor Shipton, you're a painter yourself, so anyhow, just looking for direction, we'll carry on.
That's good.
I'm allergic to tarmac though.
Yeah. We'll get you a mask.
Okay, I have many masks.
No doubt. Barbara.
I like the idea of community involvement. I also don't think that, given the price point that you've indicated, it's a lot less than $10,000, even if we were to pay our staff, because we want it done correctly. We also need to understand social distancing until things open up completely. But I like community involvement. Whatever, Jim, you think can, I would support it based on your recommendation, Jim, and certainly I would volunteer myself if that were the case. I would like to propose that we approve the Artemisia location and get this moving forward to whatever next step Jim Ellis requires.
Okay. Do I have the
to move forward?
Do I have a seconder for that? Brian? Okay. And Jim, go ahead.
Well, from what I'm hearing is possibly I'll talk with staff here later this afternoon, but maybe we could put out a feeler for a week or two on the website to see if we have any interest for volunteers and coordinate that. From my discussions with the paint supplier in Owen Sound, there is paint available for this. They do have to mix some colors. So I would imagine that, you know, we can have this done sometime in the next 4 to 6 weeks, I would anticipate for sure. So if that's kind of the route we want to go, we can see if we can get community involvement in the next few weeks and put that list together. Obviously, we'd have to make sure the area is clean and work out a date that we would close to get it accomplished. So.
Okay, thanks. Barb, did you have something?
I'm just trying to move the motion forward. I'm not sure what we need as far as direction, but as far as the design, I would propose just straight blocks. I think if you were going to do a chevron, like I didn't share that with the rest of council, Jim, but the chevron that I got off of the Googling to 2021 Pride flag, it would have to have a chevron on both sides. Does this eliminate the need for the shark tooth?
Go ahead, Jim.
No, we don't need to do the shark tooth on this. That was a county requirement for their crosswalks. We don't have to do shark tooth with this one.
Awesome. So because I haven't shared that that chevron flag, I would propose just going with straight block unless you want to send something out, but Brian's nodding that keep it simple is probably the best. And yes, thank you. I think it's a great move.
Okay,
What do you need from us as far as direction? And then maybe Lindsay can work her magic into some word.
well, we have the one amendment on the floor. So maybe we could just add that to the amendment, and that way it's all in one package without having to do it a
Can
couple of
I
times.
interject for 1
Yep.
second?
Go ahead,
The
Liam.
funding source, the report comments, in the report, it says costs associated with the project will be funded from the Eco Park Reserve, but that's not in the resolution. So can we clarify the funding source for this project?
I thought it was going to be the Eco Park.
Yeah,
The previous resolution was for the High Point crossing to be funded from the Eco Park Reserve, and that failed. So we would need a funding source for this one stated.
Lindsay just put that in the resolution.
yeah. So I'll just get you to read the big amendment when you've got stuff there, Lindsay. You can. Ah, there we go. Hey, we can all read it.
I'm
Be
not
resolved.
done yet.
Okay,
The councilman, the second clause. So that's to second clause be amended to add the Artemisia Street South. But
Yep.
we wanted a clause about the design of it, correct?
yeah, I think so.
So, clause states that the crosswalk be designed using the block
Yeah.
pattern. Is that
Using
right?
straight block.
Yeah,
Using the
that's
straight block pattern?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, if I could spell.
Okay, I could read it like that.
Is that good?
Okay. So that's a motion. Any further discussion on this? Okay, seeing none, and this is the amendment to the motion. So is anyone opposed to this amendment? Okay, that is carried. So now we're back to the original motion as amended. Any further discussion on this? Okay, seeing none, anyone opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Thanks, Lindsay, for getting that together. Yeah, I agree, Brian. It's just after 10:30. Is this coming back at 22 enough? Sure.
Sure.
Okay, so let's have recess. We'll come back at 20 to 11. Thanks. No, I've got 22, but we'll leave it a minute just to get a couple more. There's okay. So I've got 22. We'll call the meeting back to order, and Ryan should be here in a second. The next thing we have is 9.5.1, and this is the Economic Development Quarterly Report. So it's moved by Martin and seconded by Brian. When he gets here. Hi, Terry. You've been busy.
Hi, guys. I've been trying to keep busy for sure.
Yeah. Anything you wanted to highlight or add, or?
Not specifically. This is a general update for council, and it's also a starting point for myself. And there's just the one tourism strategy for approval by council. And that specific tourism strategy, I think that, you know, Southgate has a rich history that we should share and preserve. And I think that we can do that while promoting safe tourism outside with rediscovering responsibly, and also developing opportunities for our local businesses. So has everyone had a chance to read everything over? And if anyone has any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Martin.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I was looking at the tourism strategy, and I was pleased to see that you're looking at the butter tarts and buggies again.
Yes.
Maybe done in a different way, I don't know. But the one part in that portion of your report, creating banners and signage for our hamlets, if you're talking with a historical society, I know places like Elora, you know, places like that were not trendy years ago, but have become. They also put signs on historical buildings in the town. Would that also maybe be a part of it? Not just hamlets?
I hope so. Actually, I think one of the things I'm looking at is doing a historical tour of Southgate. So like a driving tour. So absolutely, the buildings and the stories and the hamlets and all encompassing, and we can do a historical driving tour is the goal.
Yeah. Okay. But if the historical society does know some houses that have special meaning from years ago, would we be looking at getting plaques for them too? Because then you could put them on actual a map. Not that they want people going all over people's property, but at least they can see the architecture. Because I painted some houses on Victoria Street that have really interesting architecture, and there are stories behind the homes too, with builders of the community and what have you. So just I think it's great. So I was just wondering about that. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Dave?
Yeah, just to jump on that historical society, before this whole COVID thing happened, we have had some discussions with the Dundalk Historical Society that's resurrected themselves recently. And they are definitely interested in being involved in this process and identifying, you know, anywhere in Southgate, those kind of I shouldn't call them artifacts, but those kind of sites that have historical significance. And we were looking also at getting the schools involved in creating these stories. And those stories could be identified by a URL code on a sign that would jump them to the story as they tour through the community.
Yep. Brian?
Thank you, John. Good report, Terry. Thank you very much. In regards to those signs for the, you know, this historical hamlets and so on and corners, it strikes me, if my memory serves, which isn't always accurate, but it seems to me that the county a number of years ago, they had a program initiated to coordinate the various historical hamlets and so on, coordinate the signage so that it was consistent right across the county. I can't remember whether that program is still ongoing or not, but maybe touch base with probably Philly would be the what Philly Markowitz, she'd be probably the best one to touch base with there on that.
Okay, thanks, Brian.
No need to reinvent the wheel, so to speak, but I like the idea. Thank you.
Great. Any more questions or comments? Barbara.
Hi, nice to see you, Terry.
Nice to see you too, Barbara.
It's great, thank you. Through you, Mayor Woodbury. The Hamlet banners and signage, I know, Dave, you spoke about this URL code and getting stories written a couple of years ago. And so I'm glad that we're picking that up again and maybe seeing that come to some form of reality. I know that there was some interest in the signage from Holstein. I think you're probably aware of it. One of the residents picked it up, and you have it in your possession, or someone has it in their possession now. Would you be looking at that type of, I know that Deputy Mayor Milne has mentioned consistency with the county. They have specific signage at the hamlets like Drumore and Holstein and Hopeville and others, Swinton Park. But are you thinking to incorporate Dave's URL code in that? Would it be a special hamlet sign? Because we've had inquiries from other hamlets wanting to replace their hamlet signs. Is that kind of what you're looking at, a specialty sign?
Maybe I'll respond to that because I know the history. The signs that Brian are referring to is a brown sign with a white liner around it, framing it. We would, I believe, likely want to use that same sign for identification, similar in other municipalities. But a URL code sign, I think, would be something of a small sign we'd just put underneath it as an option. And that may come in, it's not going to all happen the first year or anything, but that would be developed separately. I think we need to really, the hamlets we're likely talking about, yes, they would be Swinton Park, and there is identification for those, what I would call definitely identifiable locations, but locations like Boothville and Bethel and those kind of places that really don't have much of a populace of any kind would be the ones we would look to identify and try and provide those historical significance. Like one that I never knew of, but it's very close to where I live, is Campbell's Corners, and that's been identified by some community members that they'd like to be part of sponsoring that. So I think that's what we're looking at. The Holstein sign that you're referring to, I think, is a whole different type of identity sign. We'd have to work with the county to get resurrected, see it on County Road, and Jim is, I believe, worked on that.
Okay.
Thank you. And one additional question then, Terry, you mentioned that you're going to be meeting with the existing shops and mapping their locations and their product portfolio. I'm wondering, with the report, that it would be helpful to know where these 160 shops are, both current and future ones, because I think that would definitely help our roads department in understanding haul routes and road maintenance and where these shops are congregating. It's fine. We know that there are 160 shops either approved for site plan, built, or not, but you kind of lose track after a while. We do. I mean, I know I do. I can't speak for anybody else, but it would be interesting to include those already approved in zoning but not yet built. Just a suggestion.
Yes,
Certainly,
thank you.
One voice.
So it will be, what I'm working on right now with the county IT is exactly that. It's something that Dave had already started with Glenn, and it will be an interactive map where you can, I can actually send a sample link to Lindsay if you'd like. You'll get to a home page and you can click some tabs, and the tabs will be colored, and you can see all of the businesses on a map of Southgate. And then you can click on those businesses. Some of the information will be public and some of it will just be private for our own use. and we can actually communicate to our businesses through the data that we'll be collecting as well. And the idea that I'm working with the county is that the same data collection that I'm doing will also populate the Made in Gray website. So that's the stage we're at now, is ensuring that whatever format that I collect the data in will populate this map, and it will populate Made in Gray. And the purpose of that is to give our businesses a broader marketing platform and to have the county aware of our businesses so that they can be promoted at that level as well.
That's great. Yeah, we're
Thank you.
definitely generating a whole lot of interest in the county from this end of it, more so than we had many years ago. We were kind of, when I was on the Dundalk Council, we were kind of the forgotten corner down here in Egremont, Broughton, and Dundalk, and we're definitely not now. That's for sure. Any other questions? Okay, not seeing any. Motion, anyone opposed to this motion? Okay, seeing none, it's passed. Thanks, Terry, and good to see the report and see you're off and running, actually.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Okay, we'll move on to Dave's report, 9.6.1, moved by Brian, seconded by Jason. And this is Flato East Phase 7, 8, and 10 pre-servicing agreement. Did you want to add anything to this, Dave?
No, I think the report kind of stands on its own, and I'll just take questions if there are any.
Okay, thanks. Are there any questions? Well, it's starting to look like questions were fairly easy this time around. Oh, there we go, Brian.
Thank you, John. Dave, what I guess what I'm gathering from both this report and perhaps the next one as well, was that the securities that we're going to hold will not be specific to a project. It will be held in aggregate. Is that what I'm understanding here?
Yes, that's correct. They will cover the aggregate costs, but it will be one LC to cover, because from time to time, if we got 3.4 million %, let's say, we feel that there's, with that level of securities, there's a flexibility that, we can easily cover 3.5 million or 3.6. But if it gets, significantly above, we're going to need to add LC. At the flip side of that is when we do LC reductions and we go below 3.4, they are not going to ask for money to be reduced unless it's, again, significant. If they need 2.8 or 2.6, they're going to maintain that 3.4 because they're always doing work to reduce and adding work to increase. So this one will likely take some adding of LC, but we'll do that and confirm that prior to registration. There's a new person back from maternity leave that is leading the charge again on this file. So we have committed to work with them on reviewing the work that they have done, and likely the LC will come down in requirement.
So if I could, I guess my concern is that if we're holding the LC in aggregate for this particular developer, if heaven forbid something goes sideways, can we use that LC for a specific project? Like I don't want to get into trouble that way, and that's or spend $1 billion on lawyers trying to sort it out. I mean, I have faith in the developer, but I have faith in Christmas too. So just let's not get too lax, I guess. And I'm not sure that's the right word.
Definitely, there is no lax. The very, very first project they've done, they still have LC dollars in place to cover Flato West.
Absolutely, and I'm not trying to slag the developer here. I just want to be sure we don't get into some kind of legal ball game. That's all.
Yeah, and that's why we have made it a very important piece that we talk about all projects every time we do one of these things, to make sure the pluses and the minuses still add up in our favor.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Is anyone opposed to this motion? And that is carried. Thank you. Next is the bylaw to go with that, moved by Barbara, seconded by Michael. Any discussion on the bylaw? Okay, Lindsay, I'll get you to do that.
Thank
Please.
you, Mayor Woodbury. Recorded vote for bylaw 2021-101, Flake East Phase 7, 8, and 10 pre-servicing agreement. Councillor Dobreen?
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Mills?
Yay.
Mayor Woodbury?
Yes.
Councillor Shearson?
Yes.
Councillor Frew?
Yes.
Councillor Shipsky?
Yes.
Councillor Wright?
Yes.
By a vote of 7 to 0, that's carried.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have motion moved by Jason, seconded by Brian. It's the CAO report 2021-055 Southgate Chambers, Council Chambers. Want to add anything to this, Dave?
So I guess the only thing I would add is that I kind of snuck around trying to tell you that we got funding, but we can't talk about it. I mean, this is, anyway, we have a funding agreement, but we can't talk about it, but we're going to talk about it to get an RFP out the door. I guess that's what I'll say at this point. Hopefully sometime before we get the work done, they'll announce it.
Yes. Yeah, they were pretty specific. We can't announce it, but we could deal with things at council. So, any questions that actually can be answered? Discussion? Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it's not related specifically to the project itself, although it somewhat is. In regards to furniture, do we know the whereabouts of the former council table from Egremont? Is it in that building, or where is
Yes.
it at now?
I believe it is still in that building. It was in the way of the exercise people, so I think it's been dismantled and put up against the wall. But that's a really good question as far as furnishings at that site. You know, do we, retrofit or get that table repaired, because that is a beautiful table. There is no doubt. I think what we need to do is, there is definitely some discussions on this whole project, but I think to get the framework at least started, in looking at the project, it's kind of like the Arena Auditorium, and that's why I've patterned the RFP after that same project. Is until you take the dressing off the 2x4s and know what's underneath, we really don't know. So we may even look at if staff are available, we have available time, we may dismantle and take some of that down and make it easier to tender. But I think the best approach would be going on a time and materials basis, that we take the risk of the issues, the problems, and the easiness of the project or the difficulty of the project. Otherwise, if we do an RFP and want a locked in price, we're going to pay for the difficulty of the project, even if it's not there. So, there's some other things we need to decide. some things that aren't in this part of the tender or this part of the project is technology that would be required. But I think we can take that under the control of the clerk's office to provide the technology for the here and now needs of the new world of hybrid meetings. I mean, we're obviously going to at some point meet live, but there may be some people that like the feature of virtual, so we'll need to provide that virtual capacity in our new systems when we broadcast meetings or make them accessible in various ways. The other thing is there will likely be discussions we'll come forward with on some layout. You know, do we need another room? Because we've thought about that from the standpoint of the design. Do we need a room to go into closed session in the middle of a council meeting? In all my time as CEO and as a department head since amalgamation, I've never, in my experience, been in a meeting where we've gone into closed session in the middle of a meeting. I think we can do better planning than that to respect the public. And if we need to go into session before a meeting, we start at 6 o'clock or we start at 8:30 or something like that, or delay the start of a meeting for various reasons if we do need that decision making first rather than later. But those are discussions. Do we want to go to the expense of those kind of things? Definitely, of course, accessible washrooms and that kind of thing would be in there, and some sort of a kitchenette area for refreshments. But I think if we get this thing out the door, the addition of a small office or maintaining the small office that's in the old credit union could be a way to save on some cost too for that purpose. But anyway, we have the RFP before you, and subject to change, we would recommend this be put out for receiving proposals back from contractors.
Okay, thank you. Brian?
Excellent, and I'm not going to ask about chairs because that took far too long to answer about a table. So that's great. No, I think this is a great idea. Let's get at it, and maybe Jim could petition some of his staff to see if they're interested in doing the project. Just saying. Thank you.
Well, at least, painting the crosswalk there. Any other questions or comments? Barbara.
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury, and thank you, Dave, for elaborating on some of the questions that I had asked. I know that it was you added on to Deputy Mayor Milne's question, which made it seem longer, but you included some of my suggestions. As for a secondary room, my comment wasn't so much about council going into closed session, but in the prior term of council, there have been times where we've recessed to allow staff to go to the back room and, look up certain things or come back with a recommendation, or perhaps where the mayor might want to meet with someone out at this end, or, somewhere for someone who has to declare a pecuniary interest in closed session, where do they go? Want them having to go outside in the middle of winter. Was my suggestion, an accessible space on the main floor. So thank you, Dave, for considering those thoughts. And I'm with Deputy Mayor Milne. Let's move forward, because short of allowing us or requiring us to continue to meet virtually indefinitely, we need a place to go. So thank you.
Okay, Brian?
Just another thought I had, and it just Barb just twigged it with me. I would hope that whether we want to actually go to the state-of-the-art IT stuff, I would hope at the very least that we put the basic infrastructure in place so that we can do that if we decide in the future to do it. Because as we've seen with the current council chambers, it is a total mishmash of stuff from 10 or more years ago until now, and our staff are left trying to figure it out, sort it out. we need to make sure that this is a clean start and we have the capabilities to do what we're doing now and into the future. At the very least, put the infrastructure in place to make sure that we can do that. And I'm talking about wiring and that kind of stuff. So I would hope that is being considered.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave?
Yeah, so we would have definitely fiber right to the building because it will be in the location because we're next to a tower as well. But we would work with the local supplier to make sure we have fiber. Plus there'll be IT cables ran to locations and give us the capability and flexibility to put technology in, whatever it may be. And that's the one thing that, you know, it's kind of a blank canvas. We can do what we think is necessary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a hybrid method, I think, of doing things is, to me, the way to go. It's long since bothered me that we tie up staff for hours on end sitting, you know, watching the meeting when they're answering a few questions or there's no questions about a report. I'm sure they would rather be doing other things, and if they could appear online to the council meeting at times, it would really, I think, be helpful and cost effective. Dave?
Yeah, the other one thing I want to respond to is I don't want council thinking that we haven't really thought about an extra meeting room or that. There is the upstairs, and Brian will remember, in the building that could be used as a room if we needed to. I know it's not accessible, and there's also, you know, for people to go off into the washroom or the garage area to exit the meeting if, let's say, some member of council had to recuse themselves. So anyway, and we're also looking at building accessibility to make sure it's accessible, of course, for all members of the public. But these are things we'll have further discussions on, and when we see a layout and try and make those proposals to council as we design the process, because it will be a design build type of arrangement.
Great, thank you. Seeing no more questions. Martin?
Yeah, actually, Johan, I do have one. It just came to me. With the space being left open at the Hopeville offices, is that definitely going to go to the building department or just expand the admin that's there?
So the initial plan is we're looking at taking the council chambers as you know it, and inside the door to if you go in from the washrooms and the main entrance area, inside the door to the right would be a meeting room. We'd create a larger meeting room there where the mayor can meet with people, or we could have a more distance staff meeting, because the other meeting room is pretty tight when you get 8 or 9 people in there. We convert the old meeting room back to an office for confidential purposes, and we would put in the other part of council chambers to the left, that would be an open space office area for the building staff to return to.
Okay, that's
and
good.
That
so
that'll. I guess what I would say there is that would be for the short term. What does the long term look like? If we continue to grow and we need more space, then we might go back to, because I know that whole county plan of a building in Dundalk has kind of got pushed back too, because there's other areas that need space as well. If the library wants to expand, there's some things that's got to leave there and go someplace else. And we think the building department is one that could stand on its own in another building, and Dundalk being as the busiest location is likely the best place for them. But that's a long-term thinking beyond 2022.
Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Seeing no other questions. Oh, Barb, you have something?
Just a quick one through you to Dave. I'm getting a lot of static. I'm not sure if it's on my end, but when you were talking about the Hopeville council chambers, if I recall, the accessibility committee that came in there was some requirement for a certain size lunchroom that could accommodate staff. So is that part of that whole expansion and opening up the hallway and washroom area in the back there?
Not this go round. What we're looking at as far as lunchroom would be more lunch hours, or more like 30-minute breaks for lunch, and reduce the number of people in there at one time, as opposed to, because the present footprint and getting building department back in wouldn't allow much more than just changes to the building itself in the council chamber area. We're working at doing other things, distancing and so on, and not having people work as close. But I think when building department moves out, then that would be when another change could take place.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay,
John, if I could.
sure.
Yeah, no, I just, I got no problem with this at the Holstein location there. It sounds good. I agree with Brian. We should, wire it up and everything for the future. My only thing is I hope we don't go too elaborate on the, it still is just a meeting room basically. So I just want to see us, kind of keep it within reason. That's just a comment.
Yep, good comment, Jason. I agree. It's got to be workable, but yeah, we don't need extravagant. That's for sure.
We don't need individual coffee machines.
No.
Wow.
Just want to follow up,
Well, maybe we
Mayor?
do.
Yeah. Yes, Barbara.
Mayor needs coffee.
Yes.
We need to keep the mayor happy.
Yeah, I bring my
But,
own. I got it.
Going back to Deputy Mayor's comment about boardroom tables, given social distancing, if the table is of any similar size as the table that is in the Old Town Hall or the table in the mill room from previous councils, that wouldn't really work as a council table. But if you're clearing out the council chambers, wouldn't we be able to repurpose that furniture in the new location?
Well, I think we'll have to see about that kind of stuff, but it's to me, it's more that we realize that it's important history stuff that we look for something with it, whether it's actually right there or we use it as a meeting table in the main administration building or whatever. That's a discussion for another time, I think. Yeah.
Thanks, Mayor.
Go ahead, Dave, and then Michael.
I guess until we really look at the final footprint of where things fit, we don't even have an idea what the orientation of the meeting room would be for council. One thing I would say about the present furniture that we have in the council chambers, I mean, it's not a long life type furniture. It's just particle board, and it likely should have had more money invested in it when it was built. But I think the meeting table that Brian's talking about could be retrofitted and expanded on. I mean, because it is a nice piece of architecture that would be a shame to lose. I think it was donated by a craftsman in the community. So anyway, those are discussions definitely for another day rather than try and find out or figure out where each microphone's going today.
Yeah. Michael.
I was glad to see this come forward. I just kind of wonder at the same time, I'm kind of at a disadvantage because I've never been in that building throughout the different rooms. I'm just kind of wondering if at the same time we're doing this council chamber, can we set this up that we could put other departments out there, AKA like maybe the waste, maybe the roads, maybe the building department, EDO, like, is there a way that we can make this building that we're going to wire it all up, utilize it to its capacity versus trying to jam everybody back into Hopeville when it opens back up again. If it's going to take us a little bit more time and do it right, let's fill the building for the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And go ahead, Dave.
So with that said, I think there is a few things there. There is definitely size limitations as well. I mean, for sure, council chambers are going to be, likely 3 times the size it is now. But I think it's important to have that community facility for different types of programs. I mean, it can be a recreation use facility for exercise classes, which it is being used for now. I think the only thing that would be permanent would be where the council chamber table would be, where the rest of it would be portable in nature and we could move around. As far as decentralization is good, but I mean, it can have its pitfalls from a management perspective and inconsistency of where people are. So I think we have to be careful of throwing people in offices in different parts of the township. I think it can be used for temporary services, maybe at tax time, collecting bills there temporarily or that type of thing. Definitely for elections, it puts us in a good place for election technology availability and so on. At the same time, these retrofits at the Hopeville office will put us in a negative position as an election site. But, we have Swinton Park that we can pivot to for election purposes. But anyway, those are things that we need to worry about down the road. I think we need to focus on this one for use as a municipal council chambers with the flexibility to have the site used for temporary location for services.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Anyone opposed to this motion? And that is carried. Thank you. Next, we have moved by Jim, seconded by Barbara, and it's 9.7.1. It's PL 2021-052 zoning bylaw amendment. Clint, did you want to add anything to this one?
Sorry, pardon me. Good morning, council. No, I'll leave the report to speak for itself.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments? Okay. Seeing none. Is anyone opposed to this motion? And that is carried. Next, we have the bylaw. Oh, no, we don't. Yes, we do. We have the bylaw to go with that. Moved by Brian, seconded by Jim. Any discussion on this? Okay. Lindsay, if you'd like to go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Woodbury. So recorded vote for bylaw 2021-092, the zoning bylaw amendment for Larry Schill. Councillor Shipston?
Yes.
Councillor Rice?
Yes.
Councillor Dupree?
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Mill?
Yay.
Councillor Shearson?
Yes.
Mayor Woodbury?
Yes.
Councillor Frew?
Yes.
By a vote of 7-0, that's carried.
Okay, thank you. And next we have moved by Jim, seconded by Michael, and it's planning report 2021-053. It's a zoning bylaw amendment for Peter Weber. Clint, anything on this?
Again, this is fairly straightforward. We heard the public meeting on this, and it's an accessory apartment or dwelling attached to a principal home. Primary difference for having to go through a zoning here is that it's on private services in a settlement area, so it's on a really small lot, and therefore we have to be a little more careful with servicing and that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on this? Okay, Barbara?
Just wanted to mention that it's coming, the construction is coming along, and Drumore is just booming with new development.
Well, I'll have to watch the traffic as I go through with all the stuff going on.
We're
Any,
going to petition MTO for stoplights soon.
Okay, good. I'll support that. Just matter of where you put them, that's all.
Well, and streetlights too. Streetlights, that'd be good, Clint.
Any other questions?
I'll make
or
sure
suggestions?
Jim puts that on his list.
Yeah.
See if
This
they're
may-
interested in that.
This may affect our growth study.
Yes. Actually, we may mention that.
It might.
Probably already has.
Yep. So not seeing any other questions or comments? Anyone opposed to this motion? And that is carried. Thank you. And moved by Brian and seconded by Martin, the bylaw to go with that one. Any discussion on the bylaw? Okay, Lindsay.
Woodbury recorded law 20-097, zoning bylaw amendment for Peter Weber. Mayor Woodbury,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Mill,
Yay.
Councillor Dobreen,
In favor.
Councillor Rice,
Yes.
Councillor Shearson,
Yes.
Councillor Frew,
Yes.
Councillor Shipston.
Yes.
I vote a 7-0, that's carried.
Okay, thank you. Next moved by, excuse me, Jason, seconded by Jim. Planning report 2021-058, and that's a site plan agreement from Amos and Betsy Bowman. Anything on this one, Clint?
This is a fairly straightforward one. They had a site plan agreement. However, they wanted to alter where they wanted to put the outside storage. And of course, with site plan control, if you want to relocate something outside of where it's been designated, you have to amend your agreement. And originally they brought it in to amend it, and it was actually outside the area zone. So we actually had to get them to change that to accommodate at least the zoning, and this is what we came up with, and it looks to be acceptable from a planning point of view.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from council? I'm not seeing any. So I'll call a question. Anyone opposed to this motion? And that is carried. Okay, next we have the bylaw to go with that, moved by Barbara, seconded by Brian. Any discussion on the bylaw? Okay, seeing none. Lindsay?
Thank you. Mayor Woodbury, recorded vote called for bylaw 2021-055 to amend site plan 621 Amos and Betsy Bowman. Councillor Shipston,
Yes.
Mayor Woodbury,
Yes.
Councillor Rice,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne,
Yay.
Councillor Frew,
Yes.
Councillor Dobreen,
In favor.
Councillor Shearson.
Yes.
I vote a 7-0, that's carried.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have moved by Michael, seconded by Martin, site plan 2021-059. It's Lem and Nancy Martin. Anything you wanted to add to this one, Clint?
No, this one was approved a while ago, and they're only getting around to bringing in the site plan now. So it's a fairly standard site plan for a shop. So I'm recommending it be approved.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Is anyone opposed to this motion? That is carried. And now moved by Brian, seconded by Jim, is the bylaw to go with that. Any discussion on the bylaw? And Lindsay, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. Recorded vote for bylaw 2021-096, the site plan 13-21, Elam and Nancy Martin. Councillor Frew,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne,
Yay.
Councillor Rice,
Yes.
Councillor Shipston.
Yeah.
Councillor Dobreen,
In favor?
Councillor Shearson,
Yes.
Mayor Woodbury.
Yes.
By a vote of 7-0, that's carried.
Okay, thank you. And that brings us to 10.1, moved by Barbara, seconded by Michael, and that's the road widening bylaw for Pallister Farms livestock.
I should probably declare an interest in this, John. I forgot about it.
Okay.
Here it is.
Yep. Yeah. Don't forget to send the paperwork in to Lindsay. Go ahead, Lindsay.
Yep.
So this one, I wrote the motion as amended just because it hadn't quite been registered. It's actually been registered now, but at the time of the agenda, it hadn't quite been registered, but I didn't want to hold it up until the 1st of August as I knew I've already got confirmation from the land registry that it has been registered. So we'll just sub in the registration number and the date in the bylaw, but that's why I wrote the motion being a bylaw to establish a highway in the former Township of Croton as amended.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds fair. Any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, you can do the vote, Lindsay, please.
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. So recorded vote for bylaw 2021-099, which is a road widening bylaw for consent file B121 Pallister Farms. Councillor Dobreen,
In favor?
Councillor Shearson,
Yes.
Councillor Frew,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne,
Yay.
Mayor Woodbury.
Yes.
Councillor Rice has declared a conflict of interest. Councillor Shipston,
Yes.
by a vote of 6-0, that's carried.
Okay, thank you. Next, notices of motion. Oh, Barbara, go ahead.
I just wondered, given the time, I know that we won't take too long to get through, but we have a closed session. Could I make a motion to go past noon just in case we require it?
Sure. Anyone want to second that? Michael? Okay, and Jim, any discussion? Okay, anyone opposed? All right, and that's done. Thank you. Any notices of motion? I didn't see any. Okay. Consent items in 12.1. I don't have any pulled from there. Does anybody have a comment or question? I just wanted to see that Cody McGrady's been promoted to acting captain, or appointed, so that's congratulations to him. Sure he'll do a good job there. Does anyone, any comments on any of the stuff? Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And the question would be directed to Jim Ellis, I guess, his public works report. How is the roadside brush work coming along? Is the machine standing up? Are they making as much progress as we anticipated they might? That kind of thing.
Go ahead, Jim.
So, yeah, we're still going at it. There has been a few delays, a few breakdowns. There's one currently with the cylinder. So there is a lot of wear and tear on the machine. But anyhow, the parts are getting fixed for it. We did take a little bit of a window where we went back to some of the area that we did in the winter time. because of the snow and the depth, we didn't get to the bottom kind of thing. So there was a cleanup, and we kind of did that in coordination with the bird nesting type window, to be out of the top of the trees and being in. So we've kind of thought of that and implemented that also. But yeah, we're going back at it. The two operators seem to enjoy the work. But I know from driving some of the no winter maintenance roads, and one not too far from you yesterday afternoon, 57, I'm hoping that we get down there, or I'm going to direct staff to get down there and just get a brush back a little bit. You know, typically we go almost fence line to fence line. We can't do that with some of these roads, but we need to open them up a little bit more quicker, because they are vegetated in, especially with the leaves on. And, you know, I was hitting the mirrors with my pickup on the side. So we are going to try and implement and get in some of those areas as well. But we have had some breakdowns. And
No, that's great. Thank you. Not the breakdowns, but I understand. But no, that was a great description. Thanks, Jim. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Anyone opposed to the motion? And that is passed. Thank you. And next we move on to 12.2, and that is moved by Martin, seconded by Brian, and that's the correspondence ones. Don't have anything pulled for that. And any discussion on any of those items? Okay, seeing none. Anyone opposed? Okay, nobody's opposed to this motion. So that is carried. And now we move on to 12.3. Barb's pulling 12.3.2. And I didn't get any for any of the others. Any discussion on any of the other motions? Or the correspondence, sorry, in resolutions from other municipalities. Okay, seeing none, is anyone opposed to receiving these for information? And that is carried. So then we have the motion from Barb. There it is up there. And I'll be looking for a seconder for this motion.
Barb, do you want to read it just so it's on the record, or I can, doesn't matter.
Certainly, through you, Mayor Woodbury. Be it resolved that Council received the City of St. Catharines correspondence regarding Lyme disease awareness for information, and the Council recognizes that the occurrence of ticks and Lyme disease is growing in Grey County and surrounding areas. Therefore, Council supports the City of St. Catharines resolution calling on the Ontario government to expand testing to all strains of Lyme disease and improve the level of treatment and care for those diagnosed with this crippling disease. And further, be it resolved that Council directs staff to forward this decision and the correspondence to the Premier of Ontario, Ontario Minister of Health, Grey Bruce Medical Officer of Health, MPP Bill Walker, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario.
Okay, thank you. So looking for a seconder for that. Okay, Michael, any discussion? Okay. Barb?
I just wanted to elaborate on why I support this. And it's timely that the County of Grey posted in their Facebook page and on the website tips for, you know, if you're out in the bush or walking in the woods with your pets, to do a full inspection of yourself and your pets, the incidences or the occurrences of identifying that ticks are in the area. And I personally know 2 individuals that have their lifestyle and their ability to activity levels have been curtailed as a result of fighting to be diagnosed for this disease, not in our area, but elsewhere. And I certainly was surprised that not all levels of ticks or Lyme's disease is tested for. So I would like to throw our name in support of this.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Anyone opposed to the motion? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, we have a motion. Oh, we usually do the county report. There was none for the closed session. The county report, I don't know if I have much to say about the last meeting. We have one coming up this week. I don't, oh, there it is there. I think this one was a marathon for some reason. I'm not seeing much on the agenda that pertains to us here. No, Brian, did you have anything? It was pretty.
Just quickly, the one thing that is close to us is the Grey County and the Black Pioneer Cemetery issue. The county has formally dropped the proposal to put a new depot at that property or adjacent to it. So that's a good thing. The only downside is that we still need a new site for the depot, and so the search continues. And but in regards to the cemetery itself, there is still the idea that perhaps the county should purchase the property adjacent to it and use it as a memorial gardens or some kind of naturally regenerated area for reflection, trails, walking paths, that sort of thing. But that's still in the works as well. So yeah, other than that, it was fairly routine business. Back to you, John.
Yep. I think the one thing that had to do with a fair bit of money could be was the regional airport that Georgian Bluffs was part owners on, and if the county would invest in that, but that's just preliminary stuff, and there didn't seem a very warm reception at all. So to put it mildly. Are there any questions or discussion on the county stuff? Barbara?
Thank you. Through you to you or to Deputy Mayor Milne about the property with regard to the depot. And I watched the meeting. Some of the discussions were quite lengthy and very interesting. I was interested in the outcome of that decision whereby the county didn't withdraw their offer. Does that mean that the county is, pending, further discussion and what they might or they may or may not want to do with that property in lieu of a depot? Does that mean that the county is obligated to the deal is going through, regardless of what the county will do with the property going forward?
No, and as a matter of fact, I think it's more the opposite, that without it being passed, the deal could just fall through altogether. Is that the way you?
Because I thought there was a deadline.
Brian?
Yeah, the way I understood it was that we still have the right of first refusal to purchase the property. But it doesn't commit us that we must purchase it. It's just that in the near future, we still have that option to purchase it.
Mm-hmm.
If things transpire as the way we need.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Okay. we can move on to members' privilege. I didn't receive anything on this, but if anybody has anything. Brian?
I would, I just wanted to say thank you to the council members for their indulgence on the Pride crosswalk. I recognized, I guess in hindsight, that the proposal to put it on the county road at that considerable cost was a little bit extravagant, to put it mildly. And I did have a few conversations with residents regarding the cost. So I want to thank you very much to staff for their proposal, their alternate proposal that came forward today. And I thank Councillor DeBreen in particular for extending that discussion, I guess you'd call it, and bringing it to a conclusion. And I think it is important that we do recognize that our community is open and inclusive to everyone. And I think this is an excellent way of doing it, another excellent way of doing it. And we should continue to consider items like this. And again, I want to thank council for supporting it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have anything else? Barbara?
You're muted.
First one of the meeting. And you're partially frozen. So, okay. Anybody else have anything while Barb's trying to unmute? Oh, there you are. And there you go. And she's gone. Okay. So I guess that's all for good news and celebrations. I have a motion moved by Brian and seconded by Martin that we go into closed session at 11:42. And maybe that's what Barb's doing, is heading over to closed session early. So anyone, any discussion on this? Anyone opposed? And that is carried. So we'll see you over there in a minute.
Are we going into close now? Hello? I'm going to call in.
Yes, we're going into close next.
Can you hear me, Lindsay?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, we got everybody back. No, I guess we're missing.
Councillor Shearson won't be returning.
Okay, so then I guess we do have.
We'll just have to make a few changes to some movers and seconders.
Okay, just pull this back up. And okay, so we've come out of closed and we only discussed the items on the agenda. We have two motions from closed. One is proposed or pending acquisition disposition of land. The subject was Eco Park land sale proposals, and it was a verbal report. So we have to receive that. Moved by Jason and seconded by Barbara. Anyone opposed to that motion? Okay, that is carried. And the second one is a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land, and that's subject was the waste site attenuation land proposal, and that was verbal with a bit of writing stuff as well. I have a seconder for that, which is Martin. I need a mover. Brian? Thank you. Is anyone opposed to that motion? Next, we have a motion moved by Barbara, seconded by Jason, and that's the confirmation agenda, confirming bylaw, I mean. Oh, I've been sitting here too long. Any discussion on that? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. So recorded vote called for the confirming bylaw. Councillor Rice?
Yes.
Councillor Shipston?
Yes.
Mayor Woodbury?
Yes.
Councillor Shearson is absent. Deputy Mayor Milne?
Hey.
Councillor Dobreen?
Yes.
Councillor Frew?
Yes.
I have a 6-0, that's carried.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Woodbury,
Yep.
before you go to Brian's motion, I know that I was disconnected due to technology, and I didn't know if anyone mentioned in members' privilege what a great meal the Egg Society put on last weekend. The half chicken dinner was tremendous, really well organized, and congratulations to them. And also to mention that the Dundalk Dance Association is putting on a Chinese dinner drive-through on, I believe, Sunday, June 25th.
Not June. Must be July?
Sorry, July. Yes,
Okay.
July.
All right, because if it was June, it would have been really good already.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was still.
Okay, and Brian, one of our favorite motions of the day, moved by Brian, that
Yes,
we
sir.
adjourn.
Yes,
So,
sir.
I think everybody's in favor, and thanks everybody. And,
Thank you.
I'll